Okay, so welcome everybody. If you can't hear me, just let me know. I will speak up or try to change my settings. So welcome to the Attendance Area Review Subcommittee meeting. It's the Oxford County French Immersion and City of Woodstock Elementary Panel Attendance Area Review. My name is Casey Donkavort. I'm part of the EPI group on the school and have volunteered for this committee. So I'll go over the agenda for tonight. So we'll first start with our call to order and introductions. Then we'll continue with the overview of information received at the Attendance Area Review Committee meeting, including the review report. Then we'll follow up with our questions and answer section and any feedback regarding options under consideration. Then the determination of any additional information, if any, the subcommittee may require from Thames Valley District School Board regarding the initial report, and discussion regarding the need for and timing for future school level meetings. So I will go right into the initial attendance area review report. So a bit of background on what the review is for. So Rock-Carrier is the French Immersion Public School. They're Oxford County's only French Immersion elementary school currently, and they are a relatively small size. And they have an on OTG, so that's on the ground capacity of 282 pupil places. So when referencing on the ground capacity, that is not including portables and porta packs. So that's just the school building itself. And they have a lot of accommodation pressure due to the enrollment growth and size of the school. So I think they're approaching 500 students. So that's definitely overutilization of that school. And then the second would be the English track schools. So the growing accommodation challenge across English track schools in Woodstock, and the enrollment pressure in the north and facility underutilization in the south. So I know, as far as I'm understanding, is that they are going to be proposing for another school, and the ministry replied with saying that the Thames Valley District School Board should improve school utilization before seeking capital grants. So they want to see some movement there to try to alleviate pressure before going for capital grants. Some additional notes. I guess some migration from the GTA to the Woodstock area is affecting this, as well as the city growth in the north. So this slide is just showing the facility utilization breakdown for each of the different school districts. So just if you take a look here, you see the areas in red. Those are schools that are overutilization of 110%. You'll see your orange areas, such as Central, Winchester Street. They are kind of reaching their overutilization. They're around 90% to 110%. You got your green, your Algonquin Public Schools around 87% utilization. And then you can see some of the underutilized schools such as Eastdale Public School and Oliver Stevens, which are sitting around 65, 67% there. In the small section to the right, you can see some of the surrounding areas around Woodstock. So you got Hickson Central Public School sitting about 118%. They don't show Rock-Carrier on there. It's the top right. You'll see it's overutilized at 170%. This next slide shows the existing boundaries. So as you can see here, this is the way it's currently set up. Some points to go over would be, Oliver Stevens and Springbank, they have fragmented attendance areas. So if you will see At the bottom left, you'll see the purple area, for example, is fragmented. There's two separate purple areas there. That's for Oliver Stevens Public School, as well as on the top right, you'll see Springbank is fragmented up beside Algonquin to the northeast end of town. That's fragmented as well. You'll also see a holding area to the right of Springbank. It's kind of got the hash marks there. It's a lighter blue color. And they are also attending Winchester Street Public School as well. There's also 3 holding areas to the north with the green color with the hash marks. They are attending Central Public School. Then the rest of the north end of Woodstock would be attending Hickson and East Zora Tavistock. The next slide shows enrollments and utilization. This is with status quo, so if no changes are made at all, and it shows the current on-ground capacity for 2022 as well as future on-ground capacity for 2027. If you focus towards the right side of the red border, those are kind of the numbers we'll be looking at. So you can kind of see here, there's some schools in red, which as of 2022 would all be over capacity. You can see Rock Harrier is 199%, so almost double. Springbank Public Schools also overutilized. Southside Public School, Winchester Street, they're slightly over, as well as Northdale Public School. And then with Algonquin, Eastdale, and Oliver Stevens, slightly under utilization there. As you can see, with no changes, some schools will remain in underutilizations, Algonquin, Eastdale, and Oliver Stevens. And then your other ones, Rock Harrier is going to increase, Southside, Springbank, and Winchester Street will all be well overutilized at that point. You can see to the right of those numbers, they do have functional capacity, so that would include your portables and things like that. And those numbers there reflect that as well. So the next slide is going to focus on the proposed English track boundary changes. So the proposal is to redirect students currently attending Oliver Stevens, which is highlighted in the red. So if you focus on the bottom left section, the purple section highlighted in red there. This would make additional spaces available in Oliver Stevens Public School while also improving utilization at Eastdale Public School. So they'd be currently at Oliver Stevens and they would be moved to Eastdale. You'll see in the north section, highlighted in the yellow, the proposal is to redirect students in the northeastern portion of Springbank Public School's boundary to Algonquin Public School to help alleviate enrollment pressures at Springbank Public School and distribute enrollment more equally. Those are basically the 3 major changes. Sorry, my mistake. I did not include the third one. So the kind of bluish gray hash marks surrounded by the green border. They will be returning to Springbank. Right now they're attending Winchester Street, and with the proposed changes, they will return to Springbank. So as you can see here with the slide with the changes in place, with the bottom left section now returning to Eastdale since it is underutilized and to relieve some of the pressure on south side. The northeast end, you can see that was attending Springbank is now attending Algonquin. And then the holding center to the right of Springbank was taken from Winchester Street and returned to Springbank. The next slide here would show with the proposed changes, the changes to the on-the-ground capacity for those affected schools. As you can see, Algonquin Public Schools just over utilization at 113%, and future changes to reduce that to around 96%. Eastdale Public School still be around 87%, so a little more utilization there, but still well within those limits. Springbank Public School will still be over utilization at 134%, but if you do include the functional capacity of the portables, things like that, reducing that to 98%. So, and Winchester Street would be reduced down to 102%. So that would definitely help utilize those underutilized schools and relieve some of the pressure on the overutilized schools. That's basically the changes for the English track schools. I'll now go into the French immersion, some current situation there. So Rock-Carrier French Immersion Public School, it's the board's existing single track French immersion school in Oxford County. The school is operating over capacity with enrollment projected to continue increasing. So with this, there's two options which have been formulated to alleviate enrollment pressure at the school. So the first option would be Oliver Stevens Public School. Sorry, some more information. Oliver Stevens Public School has been identified as the valuable dual track French immersion school in both options based on its current central location in the south end of Woodstock, proximity to Highway 401 and facility underutilization. That was decided previously. The board decided that was the school to be the dual track. So option one under consideration, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, kind of a north and south separation here. So it's the preferred option for French immersion to create two separate French immersion boundaries for both the city of Woodstock and the county of Oxford outside of the city, creating a north-south French immersion boundary. So Rock-Carrier French Immersion Public School would remain a grade 1 to 8 single track French immersion school that would service North Woodstock and the northern portion of the county outside of the city. Oliver Stevens Public School would become a dual track French immersion school servicing South Woodstock, the southern portion of the county outside of the city. Those options right there is pretty straightforward. This is a bit of a closer look at it. So as you can see, the north part there attending Rock-Carrier and the south part attending Oliver Stevens. Option one, these are some of the statistics from option one. So if you focus your attention on Oliver Stevens and Rock-Carrier, they were both, especially Rock-Carrier was overutilized, so that has dropped down now to about 125%. Still on the ground capacity in 2027 would be overutilized. They would obviously be looking at other options to consider alleviating that pressure within that time frame. But if you do pay attention to the functional capacity there, you do see that with portables and things like that, it's down to 84% utilization. And Oliver Stevens there as well, with having the dual track, still only about 104% utilization. That's expected to remain consistent. They do have a second option, so the alternative to the preferred approach. So rather than the two attendance areas being defined by north and south, one school's attendance area would encompass the county enrollment outside of Woodstock. So Oliver Stevens is proposed to be the dual track school for county students outside of the city of Woodstock. There are some slight variations there, which we will go over in the next slide. The gist of that is the county would be going to Oliver Stevens and the city of Woodstock going to Rock Area. As you can see here, a bit closer look. Oliver Stevens Public School receives French immersion students from the county of Oxford outside of Woodstock, but would also have a boundary in the city. And the intention of that was to create a largely walkable neighborhood, a French immersion attendance area in the area immediately surrounding the school. So you don't have someone, for example, living across the street from the school and feeling like they have to travel far to go to the school. It gives it a good little walk around area so that people living close proximity to that school can attend there. Again, Rock Harrier French Immersion Public School would remain the single track school for the remainder of the city of Woodstock. That would be the orange. Some statistics for option 2. Again, if you focus on Oliver Stevens and Rock Harrier, Rock Harrier is still overutilized 133%. They do have the functional capacity down to 89%, but as you can see, it's not quite as preferred as the first option. Oliver Stevens slightly lower than the first option, but still relatively close to that 100% utilization. They're at 97%. Not much expected growth for Oliver Stevens as well, where Rock Area, again, similar to option 1, will have more expected growth. I'll have to consider options for that in the future. That does summarize the options for both English and French immersion school boundary changes. We would now proceed to a questions section. Due to lack of attendance, we are going to not be able to continue with this section. Unless anybody else has any questions on the committee.
Yeah, just one, Casey, if I can. One thing that they haven't been clear about, given the demographics that we've got in the Eastdale area, and looking at the numbers forecasted for 5 years out, I think they're slightly below. But we need to find out what is the plan for Eastdale and the surrounding area should the on-the-ground capacity exceed what the projection is stating. For example, in my area, just where I live, we have nearly 30 homes where the demographic is 70 years of age and older. And within the next 5 years, should each one of those homes have children come in that are of school age, that's an increase of 30 people. If there's more than one student, who knows what that's going to do for our current populace. They're looking at it on the ground with the capacity that we have right now. But what is the forecast for the future?
Correct. I do remember one of those questions at the ARC meeting as well, similar to that with the COVID baby boom they were proposing or expecting. I do remember them stating that they will continue to evaluate the enrollment based off Statistics Canada surveys, I believe. But we will definitely forward that to the committee in the report as well. Thank you, Jim. Good question. Is there any other further questions? Okay. Is there any feedback regarding any of the options that anybody would like to put forward?
I think that summed it up in that one question.
Yeah, I think so. If anybody has any additional information they would like us to request from the committee.
There's one. Are we going to see any additional infrastructure refurbishments at Eastdale in the coming years? Additional building, additional classroom capacity, additional resources.
Yeah, I do think that's a good question. I do remember the stats do showing Eastdale. I don't think it had too much projected future growth, but um, yeah, it's definitely a good question to bring forward to the committee as well.
Yeah, if we're going to be bringing in students to bring the on the ground up to 100%, does our current building have the capacity to handle that?
Very good question. We will definitely forward that to the committee as well. Any additional information required? Okay. And then any future school level meetings, if anybody thinks we should be having any meetings in the future.
I would say only if information comes out that we're not aware of at this time.
Absolutely, yeah. Any future updates, things like that would for sure warrant another meeting. Well, that does end the presentation. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. And again, any questions that you do come up with, definitely bring them forward. I believe there's a question and answer section on the website. Let me give you 1 second. I should be able to find that website for you just to make sure everybody has it.